So we are here to talk about plugins for WordPress websites. HdK a long time ago decided to go down the route of focusing the websites that we built and using the CMS system WordPress. It's the most popular system in the world by far, and as such it's got an army of developers who are creating plugins, and plugins help us to supercharge our websites in many different ways, and we're going to explain what a plugin is today, and we're going to go through some of our favorites. Before I do that, let me introduce your speakers today. I'm very excited that we've got both Ben, who's one of our project managers, and Yannick, who's our web support developer. So they're really experienced on the kind of plugins that you might want to have on your website, and they're here to share their experience with you today. And they have got a lot of experience there. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to talk about what a plugin is and how you might use them on your website. We're then going to pick up on three key themes. One of them is around search engine optimization. One of them is around ticketing, and many of our clients have some kind of ticketing, whether it's class booking or event booking or theatre booking. So we're going to look at how that might plug into your website. And we're also going to look at communications, in particular emails and forms. And then we're going to recommend some of our favorite plugins for you at the end of the session. As always, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions. I think the session is relatively short in our normal sort of hour slot, so we should have plenty of time for your questions. And as always, if a question comes to mind at any point, just put it in the chat box. If it feels right to answer that question in the flow of things at that moment, we will do. If not, we'll try and answer it at the end of the session. And for those of you who have not been to our sessions before, welcome first of all, but also we do record all the sessions and they will go up on the website. That's probably the most common question we get asked in the chat box if the session's recorded. So yes, we do, and it's free to watch afterwards. In fact, we have a whole resource of webinars we've been doing over the last couple of years on a number of topics. So if you haven't already explored those on our website, feel free to go along and see what other things that you can learn from our previous webinars. I've got one more thing to share before we go on. My colleagues started a spreadsheet recently where it was a chance for people in that session to share their social media handles. And then you can go and follow other, we're a lot of arts and cultural organizations. So if you're interested to follow others and learn from them, this is an opportunity to share your social media handles and see who else is. So I think Ben, if you haven't already, Ben's going to share that. I think he has in the sheet. So fill that in at any time during the session when you've got a moment, or fill it in at the end. And I think those are all sort of the housekeeping things I was going to share. Yep. So without further ado, let me hand you over to Yannick.
Great, thank you, Hans. So kicking it off, I'm going to start off with what is a plugin? So the name plugin actually comes from video. The idea being that you get a video cassette and you just plug it in and then it plays. So you just hit play. You don't need to know exactly what it does, as in, that it winds up the tape, that it does this and interprets. It just needs to play. So it's kind of this plug in and play. So it's something that you can plug into a website and it will immediately play. And in terms of installation, depending on what system you're using, there'll normally be some sort of nice view for you to be able to click install. So for example, on WordPress, it's the plugins panel, so add new, but other systems have different places where you can add in, and they sometimes call it developer area or marketplace. For example, Freshdesk has its own marketplace. Google Tag Manager has its own marketplace. So it's this kind of like place that you can plug in. So a plugin can range from a simple plug and play, so where you can just literally put it in and it'll start working, all the way up to more enterprise level where it requires a setup engineer. So sometimes it's called a solutions engineer who will come and cater the product to your needs. So in the days where you had to have someone come in and store your internet, so this kind of thing where it's a plug and play, but you need a little bit of tweaking. So for example, if you're putting any booking or ticketing solutions, or if you're putting a CRM solution in, you sometimes need a a solutions engineer to come and help you set up all those workflows and put it into the workflows of your website. So at HdK, what we do is we check the plugins to see how the plugin works. So in the example of the video, when you press play, what we try to do is we try to check what happens in that communication. How is it making things work? How's it happening? Is it doing it in an accessible way? Is it doing it in a scalable way? Is it doing it in a secure way? So this is how we create an opinion on a plugin. Sometimes plugins will hide their code, so we'll have to create the opinion in a different way. So more looking at the company and the developers and the tech stack they're using. But that's how we create our recommendations and how we find the ones that we like and the ones that really work. So I do like the best plugins can be inserted and used quickly, simply and easily. And I do want to point out, if you are working with a web partner, it's always worth checking things through with them before you install anything. So some things are very simple and they won't have an effect on your website, and other times they can create conflicts. It's always worth, if you are working with a web partner, to just check it through to make sure it's not going to break anything that already exists on the website. So kicking off with my plugin recommendation, my theme is SEO and Optimization. So just to cover, SEO affects how well your websites rank in search engines, so like Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo. And it's a set of practices that are designed to positively affect your website rankings. So those practices always evolve and develop with it. So there's always updates in the tech sphere. So for example, Google sometimes update, well, sometimes I say they frequently update and tweak a little bit how their search bots crawl the internet. So that means what worked yesterday doesn't necessarily mean it'll work today. And this is why it's a set of practices, a set of guidelines or very solid guidelines that help you write good content that can be crawled by bots that then can be then rank very high. So they're most effectively used as you go along, rather than doing an audit content and having to go through hundreds of pages and make sure it's all updated. And with that in mind, there are plugins that are available to help you with this. So my plugin recommendation is Yoast SEO. So Yoast SEO is a plugin that works with WordPress, but it also works with other systems like Shopify and Drupal. And basically, it's a plugin that you can just plug in and play, and it gives you this nice little box at the bottom of your website. So on a WordPress website, it'll look like this. You'll have a little box at the bottom that'll have, over on the left, you can see you get a little preview of what your website result is going to look like on mobile and on desktop on Google. And then you get this really useful SEO analysis box. So this is on the free version. So you can see if there's any problems. So there's things you can address very quickly, any improvements, and also the good things that you're doing. So it's one of those things, just as you're writing, that you can check, that you remind yourself that you can then use that to cater your content. So some of the overview, so the free features, we got the SEO analysis box, which was the box that I showed you with the different traffic light system. There's readability analysis as well, which is basically checking that you're not just dumping words that check all the right boxes. It's making sure that it actually reads as a paragraph. It's also got full language support, so English, German, French, Dutch, Spanish, Italian, many, many more. And it gives you the Google preview. And another thing that's doing behind the scenes is it's making a schema, which is basically a bit of code that tells a robot how to read your website. So it can read it quicker, and it can read it. It can know what the best value is on the web page, so it can help guide the robot to what search results you want it to look for. Some of the premium features, we've got internal linking blocks, so you can link content internally, which makes it stronger for SEO. You've got social previews, so you can see what it looks like on Facebook or on Instagram. You've got an insights tool. So the insights tool is, it shows you what your text is focusing on. So if it's going towards your key phrases or which way it's going. You've also got synonym optimization and also different word form. So single versus plural, so helping you to really create organic content that is SEO focused. And then it's got automatic internal link suggestions. So something like Wikipedia is massively internally linked, which is why it ranks so high, because they've got this huge network of internally linked strong web pages. So it's giving you this kind of ability to do that with your own website. And it'll also show you if there are no links to your current, if your page is an orphan. And interestingly, it will also give you the SEO workouts. So things to keep your practice fresh, to make sure that your pages are still lighting up and new, and still ranking high. So that was SEO. I do want to make an honorable mention. So my honorable mention is WebP Converter for Media. So this is a plugin for WordPress. You put it into your website and it'll convert all your images into the most modern format so that you can serve to your website optimally. And this goes hand in hand with SEO, because if your website serves quicker, it gets a better Google Lighthouse score, which means that it ranks higher in SEO. And basically what I do is I bounce it down to WebP, and there's a premium version where I bounce it down even further, which is a smaller file type and most cases higher quality as well. I'm just going to check the chat if there's any questions at the moment.
There's no questions at the moment, Yannick, but yeah, I think this is an invitation for people who have got any questions about SEO plugins in particular, general, not just Yoast, but any of them, or your own plugins. Yeah, I think that's a good opportunity.
There are others out there. We like Yoast a lot for the other programs. In terms of WebP with Wix, it depends, because Wix sometimes close down how you can. There might be something that's similar that you can match that does a similar thing. What I do is I'll take a look as I hand over to Ben for his section.
Beat me to it. I was Googling myself there. Thanks, Yannick. Good morning, everybody. My theme is ticketing for WordPress. So one of the biggest and most important things you can use your website for is for selling and offering tickets to events, meetups, and other special activities that your company or organization may be doing, either on a frequent or infrequent basis. So the thing about ticketing is that choosing the right platform to sell your tickets can be a very tricky and time-consuming and sometimes frustrating process. And the reason for this is that there is a sort of a mountain of things to consider, as you'll see on the next slide. So the most obvious one being your pricing model, how much you're going to charge, if there are different tiers for tickets. Then you've got things like if any of those tickets can be discounted due to a certain rule or a coupon code, for example. Whether you're going to have memberships, if you have an already existing loyal customer base and you want to give them an incentive to come for a discounted price, whether that system can support a membership system. Then you've got to think about how your events operate, if they happen on one day only, if they happen on one day but at multiple times, if they happen across a range of dates at multiple times, if they happen between a range of dates. So you've got an almost infinite number of variations that you could have for your events, and it's important to know whether the system you choose can actually support the way you want to use it. Things like recurring events is another one I've just seen. Then you've got things like group bookings and how that's going to be managed if you're looking for larger scale events. Obviously now, post-pandemic, well, almost post-pandemic, we've got digital events are a very big thing. Also hybrid events, so having something actually in real time and that's being streamed digitally somehow. If you're doing in-person events, then you've got to work out if you have any requirement for seating plans. If you're in a venue, sometimes you could be in multiple venues with different seating plans. Then there's a lot of other advantages that some systems can offer, sort of integrating with accounting software to make your life easier when it comes to doing your reporting. If you're going to integrate it with social media in any sort of a way. You've got to weigh up the pros and cons of whether you're going to have external or internal ticketing, and I'll elaborate on that in a moment. And then once you've figured all that out, you've then got to work out how you're going to tell people about the event. If there's any email communication, marketing you can do around the event, if you've got a refund policy, how that's going to be managed. It's important to check as well if the service you end up using takes any commission on the payment, and whether it's best to go with somebody else because they offer a flat fee. We always like to check the support team on any bit of software that our clients use. So what we tend to do is we send them an email with a generic question and see how long they take to get back to us. Because, you know, in an emergency, it's very important to have that a quick response. So as you can see, I won't go on forever, but there's a lot there to consider when you think about these systems. And what we generally see is that there are a lot of what we call off-the-shelf software solutions, which are very, very good in their own right, but they tend to solve the short-term problem. And before I get onto the long-term approach, I just want to run through a few of these, which Janet's got on the next slide. So you'll be familiar with some of these. What we call off-the-shelf and external ticketing systems are things like Eventbrite. Eventive is more focused on online events. And you'll probably most likely have bought tickets from Design by Night, Ticketmaster, and SeatTickets. And what I'm trying to say here is that these systems are very, very good in their own right, but they do potentially come with long-term considerations that may not be suitable to your business and strategy. And the reason for that, the most common complaint we get from our clients is that everything that these sites do happens off-site. So that means that all the customers have to register with Eventbrite and they have to check out through Eventbrite, and then you have all the customer data in Eventbrite. So depending on your use case, that can either be a pro or a con. But when we're looking at custom development, the reason this is a problem is because you may already have a user base on your website, and you want to make sure that the user experience is such that they can do things on site without having to be shot off to a different website to then re-register and have that potentially frustrating booking journey. Sorry, it's just somebody in the waiting room. I'll just let them in. WordPress doesn't exactly have a native ticketing functionality, but I'm going to cover two plugins in this section, both of which are in active development at HdK. So the first one is the spektrix HdK plugin. And this is a custom plugin that we've built and we are iterating on at the moment, which only works with the spektrix ticketing system. For those who don't know, spektrix is the industry leader in ticketing for theatres in the West End, and we're beginning to see it used in museums and galleries as well. And then there's another one called For Events for WooCommerce, which is a plugin which plugs into a plugin called WooCommerce, which is native to WordPress. So I'll tackle those both first, but I'll do spektrix first. So as I've said, spektrix is the industry leader in ticketing for the West End. It's a very complex, advanced system which is bespoke to every client. And we're very pleased that last year we became spektrix web partners following the launch of MK Gallery and Watford Palace Theatre, but we've worked with spektrix for a number of years, so this has been a work in progress for us, and we're very excited that we've now brought all that knowledge together, and we've been able to create this plugin which makes developing a much smoother process, both for us and for the clients. What this allows us to do is it allows us to pull all the information from a client's spektrix account, the dates and times of the events, the booking flow, memberships, donations, and then we're able to create custom booking journeys which are fully integrated into your brand, your company's brand and theme for the website. So I'm not going to go too much in detail because it is a very complex system. I could do another whole webinar about it. But what I will talk about is For Events for WooCommerce. So this is another plugin that we're very excited about. This, as I say, plugs into WooCommerce. WooCommerce is WordPress's native e-commerce system, and you'll probably have checked out on several WooCommerce sites without even noticing it. It's really very common around the internet. And what this does is it's an add-on to WooCommerce, and it means that all tickets are essentially products. And the advantage of this is that because of variations in products, you can have times and dates, you can have online events, you can have in fact, as Yannick is demonstrating now, all the different types of events on the right hand side. This is the demo website, which we'll put in the chat in just a moment, and you can see there's a lot of different use cases that it can do. And the reason that we're beginning to work with this a lot is the checkout flow is pretty seamless. it comes with its own check-ins app, which means also that the website itself is fully customizable. So you can see it's purple and white here, but because it's built on WooCommerce, you can fully integrate it into your brands, your brand even. And finally, it also offers complete integration with Zoom and Eventbrite as well. So it's allowing you to pull events from Eventbrite if you're transitioning from one system to another. And the main advantage of this is that all your customer data exists on your WordPress site, and you're able to capture that data in one place and make the customer experience really smooth, really easy, and then be able to report accurately on that data from one centralized place. So as I say, we're very excited about this, and you can see it on London Craft Week and Watermark Gallery. Finally, I'll just go back to, to lead into the next section even. Spektrix comes with its own email communication system called .digital, which was originally .mailer. But we're going to talk about Mailchimp, which plugs very nicely into WooCommerce and for events for WooCommerce. So I'll hand back to Yannick, unless there are any questions.
Cool, thanks, Ben. If there are any questions, just pop them in the chat and we will get to them. In terms of the WebP for Wix, I can't remember who asked. It doesn't look like Wix has a plugin in their marketplace for it. One of the reasons that WordPress has so many plugins is because it's got a huge community behind it, which is one of the reasons why there's a lot of stuff out there. I did have a look and I couldn't find anything optimization, but it does look like there's a few media things, but nothing that's specifically WebP. But coming on to, so this was the honorable mention that Ben for Mailchimp, which also I'm going to talk about now. So as a communication theme, so Mailchimp, it's an email marketing communication tool. It's got a really easy setup. So you go to Mailchimp, you set up your account, and then you'll have the access to all the powerful marketing communication tools. In terms of how you plug that into your website, it gives you a little bit of code, which you can then put as a form on your website. Like for example, Wix will offer a app where you can put in the email address or some sort of identifier, and then it will hook in that Mailchimp. But it's a very easy setup. It's just basically putting a bit of code on the website. So like I said, it's an email marketing communication tool. So it's got freemium and premium levels. So it starts off free, and then as you get to a certain number of contacts, then you start after paying per contact. And it's got a few premium features where you have to pay per month for them. What is really useful for is collecting all of your audience, all of your signups in one place, which is GDPR compliant, and it can stay there for years and years and years. And it's particularly good for newsletters and editorial and shout outs. The reason it's great, it's got great reporting. So it's got open rates, so you can see how many people opened, what percentage, and also click rates. So you can see how many people clicked on links within your email. Another reason we love it, it's got custom email templates. So you can create a template and then you can just create blocks, and then you just use those blocks to reuse and send out your emails with a beautiful looking email template. And you can create many audiences. So you can have your main list, and you can have one for a specific show. What we've done in the past is we've set up specific audiences for specific shows and set up automations on those to send out Zoom links and send out information that then gets a reply that then we put into the show. So there's quite a lot of unpicking that you can do. Some of the extra features are customer journeys. This is basically marketing automation. I'll show you that in more detail on the next slide. Automations, so you can set up an automation that when someone signs up, they get a thank you. We've got integrations with many other solutions, so including Facebook, WooCommerce, like Ben was saying, Outlook, and many more. So if you have a developer, the Mailchimp has got a very open API, so it's very easy to get access to it. So you can inject it and insert it into many different places. So just to show you, customer journeys is an email marketing tool. So some of these features are locked behind premium, but you can get some of them for free. And it's basically a way of setting up logic gates. So for example, if someone opens a newsletter, to send them a different email to if they don't open it. So for example, if you send out an editorial about an upcoming show and they do open it, and then you can send them a different email saying, are you going to come to the show, for example? And if they don't open it, you could send a different email saying this show is coming. Have you seen this? You know, you can set up different workflows. So the honorable mention that I wanted to make with Mailchimp is contact form 7, which is basically a way of creating contact forms on your website. And so this is for WordPress. So what you'll see sometimes is that people will put their website, their email directly on their website. And this basically opens up the email to be crawled and attacked. So you can be spammed by bots, you can be signed up to any other email addresses. And contact form 7 basically makes a contact form and hides that email address in the form. So then a user has to enter, name, email address, and message on your website, and it gets sent to the email address, but it doesn't expose that email address to bot attacks. And we like it because it's very secure. So it's using great technologies like Ajax. So it makes sure it's refreshing on the page. And you can add reCAPTCHA, and it's also got spam filtering on it as well. So it's one of the reasons we love it. And hooking it in with Mailchimp, it's very easy to insert. It's a very simple plugin. It just creates forms. So it's very easy for a developer to get in and add, for example, a Mailchimp sign up into it, or that anything goes into Mailchimp. So it's very simple and open. But it's one of those ones that you can just very easily add a contact form, and then it gives you a little short code that you can put anywhere on the website. So moving on to rounding up, we've got 5 plugins to supercharge your website. So the first one was Yoast SEO. So it's great for SEO practices and optimizing your SEO. So over to Ben for number 2.
We have the spektrix HdK plugin, which integrates with the spektrix ticketing system.
Number 3, we've got Foo Events for WooCommerce, which is a great way of extending a WordPress website or WordPress storefront into a ticketing system. So you can have a full-blown ticketing system, and then the sky's the limit in terms of how far your developer can help you go.
Now, we've just talked about Mailchimp. Yeah, there we go. Mailchimp, which is a great email communication and marketing tool with lots of automations, can be very, very useful for increasing audience and reach.
Finally, we've got WebP Converter for media, which is a great way of optimizing all of your media on a WordPress website so that it serves optimally, makes it leaner and quicker, and then that makes you rank higher in SEO. And we do want to make the honorable mention of Contact Form 7, which is a really simple contact form plugin to add contact forms to your website. And then if you have a developer, it's very easy to then extend that contact form to do multiple things like signing up with a Mailchimp newsletter.
Thank you, Yannick. So we promised 5 recommendations, and we've given them a bonus one with Contact 7. Thank you for that. So we're going to do something slightly different, just slightly tweak the format that we normally do. We normally finish with questions, and that's the end of the session. I think we're going to offer you to ask questions now, and then we're just going to come back for a little summary. So if you've got any questions, and it doesn't have to be about the plugins that we recommended, it could be anything about that you might be dealing with plugins on your own website, or anything like that you want to just ask another person's opinion, we're here to answer those questions. Well, while you think of those questions, I've got a question. I guess the thing about WordPress is that you can use it in a sort of Wix style way without a developer, and there's a sort of there's simple versions, and then you can then add in plugins yourself, or you come to a developer who creates the WordPress website for you, and then they might add in plugins. In terms of who should be adding plugins to a professional website, what are the issues, what are the considerations around that?
Great question. So a plugin, the idea is that you can plug and play. If you're working with a web partner or a web agency, they will normally set up a website in a certain way so that it can achieve the functions or the features that you need it to be able to do. The choice to use the plugin is normally a question of speed and security. So if I have to code this from the ground up, is it going to take long, like a full ticketing system or checkout, or can I just use Foo Events? It's kind of like a weighing up. And HdK, we normally give that choice to, you know, we'll map out what those two routes would look like, so that so that whenever we're building with people, that people really have an involvement in the evolution of their technology. So that once it's built, there may be some plugins that are used either for speed, security, or ease of use. For example, setting up a contact form on a website, if you're coding that, you need coding knowledge. Whereas if you use Contact Form 7, you can just insert it immediately. Another example is something like Gravity Forms as well, which is a paid plugin, but then it can take payments through the form. So those kind of things may be set up so that you've got an area for those kind of things. So then if you want to add something new, I would say that if you are working with a web partner, it's always worth checking with them. The reason being, it might already be on the website. So you might already have a feature that does what needs to be done. And if you add another one, it might create a conflict, or you're just creating more, you're stacking more architecture. So it's getting bigger without getting any extra features. So it could be something simple, like you want to add in a pop-up plugin that just puts a pop-up, and it could just be simple, is it okay to add this? And then depending on your web agency, web partner, they may give an opinion, they may show you another way, they may show you how it's already available, but it's always worth. If you don't, I would say that creating an opinion on a plugin, it's always a good idea to get someone who's tech focused to have an opinion on the plugin. Because sometimes what we see is that communities will you'll see a plugin in use in a community, and the reason is that many people are using it, but it's not necessarily the best plugin for what they need it to do. So sometimes it's a good idea to have someone who's tech focused to have a look at the plugin and say, this one is not that good, this one's cheaper, this one's better. If you don't have that, I would say look at the reviews, and make sure that it's like high on the reviews, and then that there's not too many things, and what the negative reviews are saying. So sometimes it'll be like it'll be saying things like it doesn't do what it needs to do, and then that's a kind of a red flag. Other times it'll be like, I tried to make the store do something really incredible and a developer couldn't do it, which is a negative review, but it's not necessarily the plugin. Yeah.
I just add quickly to that, the thing is with WordPress, and therefore plugins for WordPress, it's open source, which means that the code is available. People are able to play with it and do whatever they want with it. That has incredible advantages, but the one thing that it means is that there are about, I think last time I checked, there was over 54,000 plugins on the plugins directory, and not all of them will be good. So it's a case of having a look through the reviews. If you like Yannick was saying, do check out the reviews, but if you don't have anyone to help you, I'd also recommend YouTube. Weirdly, if you type in the name of the plugin and see, usually there's about a 10-minute explainer video of someone walking you through how to set it up, what it does, and all that sort of stuff, and you can see whether it will actually solve your problem. And I think what we were saying is, although a plugin may be very highly reviewed, it's important to consider if it's going to work for you, rather than just solve, the problems it says on the tin. You'll also find that there are plugins that they've got an incredible amount of money and business behind them, and then they go on quite aggressive advertising campaigns. So when you start looking into that area, you might end up finding other ones which would be just as good. And I guess one thing I think we've mentioned already, but is that there are usually sort of free and premium versions of several different plugins.
Let's come back to free and premium maybe in a moment, but Fiona, you've asked a question. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and ask in person. It would be lovely if you're up for that.
Yeah, I mean, I am in no way particularly tech savvy, so I apologies if I've used the wrong language. Yeah, we use WooCommerce quite, we find it really helpful as a plugin for selling scripts. So this is talking my language, to think about using that for events rather than using an external like Eventbrite. I just had a quick look onto our back end, and I couldn't find it. Is that, do I need to search for it as a separate plugin? I probably do need to speak to our web guys anyway, but
no, it's a separate plugin. So it's I'd encourage you to have a look on the Foo Events website. It's just fooevents.com. And yeah, it's an add-on, so you'd have to purchase it and see which ones will be there for you. But they're very nice, and they're good support team. So if you're not sure, just ping them a message on their website, and they'll get back to you with what they can offer you.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks
for that question, Fiona. I've got another one, and I guess it ties in with a theme that we've picked up on the past about making websites carbon friendly. Is there an issue around the amount of plugins that you have in your website? Am I right to think there's a connection there?
There is, yes. I'll pick on, then Yannick's raring to go as well. Yes, absolutely. So I think, like anything, plugins are great in moderation. The reason for that is when you have a plugin on a website, you're effectively asking the website to do more than it already does. And so each time you introduce a new feature or a new plugin, you're increasing the load time, you're increasing the functionality, and it puts a strain on the processing of the server that it lives on. Now, that's not always a bad thing. Plugins are generally pretty light, but if you have 20, 30 of them, you'll probably start to notice a big decrease in your site speed, your loading, and your performance when you're editing the back end of the website. And really, the only way to solve that is by either using less or increasing your hosting to a higher server, which you may or may not want to do. But yeah, ultimately, if you're talking about carbon friendly, the longer your page takes to load, the more energy is being burnt. So yeah, you always want to keep it light and speedy.
Something we also talk about is the technical debt that you incur. So this is if you have a staff member that comes in and adds in a new plugin and then leaves, and then another one comes in and adds in a new plugin, then leaves. The reason that those plugins were added, as it gets forgotten, and then it gets difficult to unpick why they're there and where they're used and whether the website is dependent on it. So, the bricks, if you pull it out, is the whole thing going to fall? This is why it's good to keep lean with your plugins. If you're using contact forms, to just use one contact form. If you're using events, to just use one. Because I have seen it with some other websites where you have multiple, and the reason gets forgotten, and then it doesn't get used. And the most important thing is that you use the technology that you use rather than having it just there.
I guess that also brings us on to the idea, or I think you're talking about plugin maintenance you're going into, and what about sort of the role of updating plugins? What sort of considerations do we have to think about, and what are the risks of not upgrading plugins?
Yeah, great question. So technology updates periodically with new developments in the tech sphere, with new updates on code bases, etc. Like your phone software needs updating ever so often. Sorry, for the cracked phone, it's coming with a new one soon. So the plugins also need updating, and this is for optimizations or security. Plugins updating, sometimes the update can break the website. The reason being that the update perhaps is not done in a correct way, or it has an integration with a theme or your website that's very specific to the website. So I'd say that if you are doing updates, it's always good to have someone technical to do the updates. In a lot of cases, it's going to be fine. But the reason, if it doesn't, the whole website will break. So then you need someone technical who can roll it back, who can check to see what the problem was, assess whether there's a security risk, and then code in their difference or update it as well. So a lot of the time, what we'll do is we'll clone the website, update it, check it, make sure everything's firing, any integrations. For example, data is being received into the CRM in a way that needs to be done. Bookings are being able to be done. Card payments are being taken. These kind of things. So I would always recommend someone technical to do it so that they're able to roll it back, or if the website breaks, to fix it. Because it's one of those things that in a lot of cases it's fine because you're getting security and optimization updates, but the time that it's not fine, then the whole website breaks. And this is kind of like a critical moment. So we'll normally check it and then do it at a low time when there's not many users on the website, like very early in the morning or very late in the afternoon. Some other things that we also update is server languages. So for example, we use PHP as a programming language. So this has updates in the sphere, which make it run faster. So we go through and update our servers, but we have to make sure that the code fires correctly. So this is part of what we do in our maintenance.
Great. Thank you for that, Yannick. Liz has a question. Liz, are you happy to ask it in person with take yourself off mute, or would you like me? Yeah, I think you're about to. No. Yeah.
Hi. Yes. I'm setting up a website for an Arts Council funded music education project, and it's for teachers and students, and it's to help them with composition, to write music, and we've got funding for this, and we think we're going to create something that's valuable and useful, and we also want to stay in touch with the people who are going to use it. And the website that we're using, it already exists. It's in Wix, and I'm trying to work out how I can capture people's contact details in exchange for them accessing some of what we regard as the most valuable bits of the website, of the information on the website. For example, music samples, which they can download and actually use and manipulate in their own pieces. And in Wix, the only thing I could find seemed to be a way of creating a kind of social group, which meant that anyone who put in their information that was all going to be shared with anyone else who also put in their information, which is not what we want at all. All I want is for people to register so that we can write to them. And I've ended up doing that via Try Booking, which is the ticketing system I use, so that they're basically buying a free ticket, and then we have their details, and then we can do it all. They'll then get an email from Try Booking, which will have the link with that extra content. But it just seems stupidly complicated, and there should be a simple way of doing this. And is there one?
There's a lot there. Firstly, it sounds like a really great project. I hope that goes very well for you and the company. It's going to be slightly difficult for us to comment on Wix because we only code in WordPress. But what I would say is that it sounds like you're running into a lot of the problems we've been discussing about centralizing systems and making sure that the ticketing system works for one bit, and all that sort of stuff. So like I said, I can't really comment too much on Wix. What I'd encourage you to do is either reach out to, if it has to be on Wix, reach out to perhaps a Wix developer. Try typing in keywords such as members area, because I feel like that's going to give you more options than a social group. So if you look for Wix members area, that might lead you somewhere useful. If it's something that you have budget and time for, I'd encourage you to look at perhaps another system that does it all in one place. What we tend to do is build up a list of requirements, and then we go and research and find out what systems can actually do that. Finally, the last thing I think is perhaps to look at a separate members specific system that's outside of Wix and or Try Booking, so that it's just one place. Something like Patron sort of perhaps may be suitable here. But we'd love to keep talking to you if you fancy continuing that conversation.
Great.
It's one of those things where things like Wix and Squarespace are great until they're not. They do everything out the box, but then the box is set. You can't go beyond it. So I always use the image, the example that WordPress is kind of like Windows, and Wix and Squarespace are like Apple. They're very good, but if you want to do anything, you have to go to a developer, and they'll say to you no or yes, and it's very clear cut. But I think what we've done for creating these members areas, as Ben was saying, is sometimes creating a membership and then create that as a free membership. So there may be something there that you can kind of hack to make it work. But yeah, I think Ben kind of summed it up.
Yeah. And thank you, Liz. Thank you for that. And it looks like Tugai has shared a blog post on that topic as well. So thanks, Tugai, for sharing that. I think maybe we can sort of move on to our summary slide before I've got a little final bit of housekeeping.
Great. So just to round up the general considerations of plugins. So I think we talked about updates and update cycling, but there are regular updates that need to be done for a plugin. And it's important to have someone that you're going to, or someone that's going to take care of that, so that you make sure that it still works with the website, and also that it doesn't break the website, and that you've got a backup plan if it does break the website, and someone to go to recode it if it does need that updating. So that's because some plugins can be theme specific. So something like booking or ticketing especially needs to be done carefully, because there's things like customer orders, historical information, addresses that we really want to make sure is being done or handled with someone who's got the eyes for it, who can figure out if there's an error and how to fix it. More importantly, how to fix it if there is an error. There's a lot of plugins out there. There's free, premium, and freemium. I'd say there's a lot you can get for free. There's a lot of products out there, software as a service, that are giving you almost everything you need for free. But just be careful. Some will lock you in at free and then ramp it up really hard for the premium or freemium stuff. So something like HubSpot starts off free and ramps up very quickly into the thousands. And then what will happen sometimes, or what we've seen sometimes, is that someone will get locked into a membership plugin, and then it won't be able to do what they need it to do. And then it'll be a pain to extract all that information and put that into a better system. So this is where we kind of put this image of, you normally go to a doctor for medical opinions. So we would recommend or suggest to go to a web agency or someone with a technology head for a plugin opinion, so that you avoid a situation where you get locked in a plugin and then it's difficult to extract that information. So something like membership information, whereby you're sending out emails, and then if you extract that, then there's a GDPR consideration, and then a new account and how you're going to transfer it over. So it's these kind of things that it's always worth doing a little bit of work at the beginning to make sure the plugin does what you need it to do. And if there's a better way, or if there's a way that's actually going to help you, there's a great habit or a great pattern of a plugin saying, yeah, we can do everything. And me and Ben are real stickers are saying, okay, show me. And then that's where it really comes out in the wash, because some can and some can't, even though it says on the tin that they can. What they have in their mind as reporting is not necessarily what we have in our mind.